All right, here we go. Now we are live. All right, so I am with Greg Mills out there. If you guys haven't met him before, he's been a student of mine for a while. Student of my instructors also. He's under Dennis Ichikawa, just like I was, and then his his Krav Maga time came underneath me, and we get to. I got some good stories about you, especially about how you got to go out in how it looked like you came out to Virginia. You moved from California to Virginia, and well, we're not going to get political. Let's not even go there.
Maybe another time.
That's right. That's right. One thing I don't know if everybody knows about Greg. Greg is a huge dog lover, as am I, and he used to bring his dogs. And there, which one is that one?
This is Aries. This is my axe fetch.
There's his Aries. That's the new one. Now, I think have I met her? Did you bring her to town one time or no?
I brought him last Christmas, but we weren't able to meet up. So no.
Oh yeah, that sucks because you're one of my most favorite dogs ever was Laura. You know what I mean? I love that dog. Used to bring him into isn't she the one that could scale the cage?
Yeah, we'd bring in. She'd sit in the octagon while we all training, and then once we were done, she knew that we're done, and she'd jump over the fence and just be like, "Oh!" Then she and I would spar on the mat and stuff. Like
that's right.
You were actually the first person that dog met after I adopted her. I went from the shelter and straight to Chatsworth.
Yes, that is a love you and I do share. I mean, I am that I'm a dog. Matter of fact, I don't know if you've seen pictures, but I've got a little pit bull puppy now. I've always wanted a blue, and I've got one. She's a female. We named her Nezuko. You probably know what that is because you're a nerd like my kids. The Demon Slayer Nezuko or whatever. That's
sounds like an anime thing.
Yeah, it's an anime thing. Well, that's right. You really weren't anime. You were more cosplay or
comic
whatever.
Books, Dungeons and Dragons, video games.
Yeah,
grown men wearing spandex, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's definitely you. Yeah, yeah. But you know what? Not many men can pull off wearing spandex. You just happen to be one of them that could. So it worked out well.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite things I miss is the Christmas parade. Just dressing up as Deadpool and just being like, "Okay, Greg, now you get to be you."
Yeah,
this whole time.
I know you always liked the Captain America, but really Deadpool was more your character for sure. Because
is what I want to be. Deadpool.
That's correct.
It's just what I just happen to be.
That's correct. That's 100% correct. You're right. That's funny. That's really funny. Well, Greg, let's talk about where you started. I keep a close eye on you where you're at out there and try and help you get your Krav stuff off the ground. But we'll talk about how you got out there a little bit later in the podcast. But let's start with where you started. Let's talk about your family first, okay? Because you're not near your family right now, and let's talk about your mom and dad and your siblings that you have. Let's talk about them, and then we'll move on from there. Okay, sound good?
Okay, yeah. I don't know. I came from a great home. Good mom, good dad. Annoying little sister. In the way little sisters can be, but I love her to death. Amazing set of grandparents. My dad's parents, in particular, they were extremely based in their Christian faith, and so that was always a huge presence growing up. And man, it's kind of like my parents. There's so many things I thought that I don't know what they could have done better in some circumstances, but I definitely made sure that they had to check every tool in the box of how to raise me. So yeah.
Well. I didn't come into your life until a little bit later is where we probably knew about each other and I'm sure you heard about Mark Cox as much as I heard about Greg Mills, as you were training. And then, those stories could be good or bad. I guess that can go either way for both of us, right?
Yeah. I think we had a lot of commonalities, a lot of overlap in some of those stories, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, it was my beginnings were a little bit different. I I thought that martial arts is just going to make me a little bit better than what I was, because I really thought I was the cat's meow back in the day. And I realized quickly that it's a humbling experience when you're getting your ass kicked, because you got some people that are a little bit more experienced. But let's talk about it. I know that you have a lot of students that are probably listening. We already have a good amount that are listening now. And if you guys have any questions for Greg, or you want to do a shout out to him, if you're watching on Facebook, either on my channel, on my Real Talk channel, you can ask him questions, or you can throw comments at him. You know what I mean? And we'll pop them up screen. So did you tell your folks you're going to be on today? They get to listen to you?
Yeah, my parents are not very tech savvy, so
well, yeah, I guess you come by
probably
that
better for me to share.
Correct.
I'll share them the link when we're done, and that might work out a little bit better. That'd be good. Yes, it'll be there. They can either listen to it or watch it. Either way they want to do it. You know what I'm saying? So, well, let's talk about you growing up, Greg. I'm not sure some of your students know that. You struggled as a youth, and I believe you had to go to home out of state. Is that correct? Yeah. No, I kind of like I said before, like I gave my parents a run for everything. Big into stealing stuff, big into just some vandalism, fighting, complete defiance of authority, whether in school. Just kind of like, and it's, I was reading about how some people, they try one thing and then they try the next thing. And then it's not so much that they want to do these things, but they keep on getting pushed because there's not being a reaction that they want. And so my parents are extremely patient with me after being diagnosed with ADHD and things like that. Being smaller, dealing with all the bullying, they're very protective, but they also try to instill that accountability in me. And we grew up going to therapy almost my whole life. My parents were the type that showed up to therapy, where a lot of parents they kick them to the therapist and they're like, "Hey, fix my kid." I'm sure, and we get some of that in our martial arts, where the parents like, "Our kid's dicking around at the house, fix our kid." It's like, well, we all need to work together. And so my parents were big on that, but then just things just kept on adding up and accumulated in me stealing my parents' car while they were in a church service, while they were in a Bible study group, and getting into a hit and run. And it was night, so they didn't see that I had completely wrecked like the side of the car by the time I got back. And then the guy knocked on the door and police officers are there and being like, "Hey." Then got checked into UCLA. I was in their psych ward for about a month and a half while they kind of figured out what to do with me and what's going on. Then shipped me off to Provo, Utah. And that was a boarding school under lock and key. I was expected to be there for 6 months. And ended up being there for 3 years. So that was an experience. Definitely an experience.
Yeah, you spoke to me privately about that here and there. Let's take a step back, and it's the bullying part for you. Where did that play a part for you? I mean, you saying that you were a smaller kid, is that what it was? Did you naturally start fighting because of that?
Yeah. With all the trouble I got into, I told my parents, "Hey, at least I never got expelled." To which my mom very promptly replied, "What are you talking about? You got expelled from preschool." I'm like, "What?" Apparently for hitting a kid over the head with a shovel, because they were bothering me. I don't remember the details, so I couldn't fill it in. But from what I do remember, getting into trouble, I was smaller than everybody. I was super hyperactive. Super annoying. But then I didn't. Also, I was always myself though. And so when people would try and bully me, I eventually got fed up. Then I cracked somebody in the head, and they left me alone. And then
Mm-hmm.
I spent a good part of my adolescence trying to unlearn that lesson of that. Oh, you call me a bad name, I punch you in the face. That's going to be a solution. And yeah, so that came through a lot of that bullying that way.
Yeah.
Being
All
I
right.
mean, like I said, I'm proud to be a nerd, right? Comic books and all that stuff. When I was in school, that was the kind of thing that got you put in the locker and beat up for. And yeah, so a lot of the defending came out of that.
Yeah, I think that I relate to that story quite well because, being bullied like I was in school too, I figured out really quick that I punch you in the face, you kind of leave me alone. And so do a lot of other people. And so I kind of grew up that same way. It looks like you turned to comics, and back in my time, it was probably if you looked at the back of comic books or stuff like that, you'd always see the bodybuilder and somebody getting kicked in the sand in the face, and this is what you do. So I always was kind of drawn to that, into the weight room and the working out and stuff like that. So I remember that's something that's common. Well, how old were you when you had to go off to this home? How old were you?
I was 13.
13 years old.
So almost 14, just about. So probably more 14. Yeah.
So and how about, were you drinking at the time too? Were you doing any drugs, or were you just kind of hyperactive?
No. I actually didn't start drinking until I was about 25. And a big part of that is because of where I got sent away. And it's also a big reason why I've never touched drugs, no interest in it whatsoever, because with everyone that was there, I was like one of 2 people during that whole 3-year stint that had nothing to do with drugs. So I'm like, okay, at least I was able to put together that I'm here and I'm not dealing with the main problem that most of these people are dealing with. So let's not add that on top of everything else. Plus also my family didn't drink really at all. So it's something I didn't grow up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're talking about having hyperactivity, but when did you? So your parents put you there at 13. When was your martial arts training? When did that come into play?
I started when I was like 4.
So you started at 4.
I mean, but I started with Sensei Alex Sheen and Shoto Khan karate out of the Agora Hills Rec Center, and so I studied under that. Got to my 3rd brown belt, so right before black, and my parents gave me the choice: do you want to play hockey, or do you want to play or do martial arts? Still, you can only pick one. Me being the kid, new shiny thing, I went and played hockey, and then promptly started getting into even more trouble. And so then they re-enrolled me, and my neighbor across the street was training with T.O. Wesley Karate under Dennis Ichikawa, and then I started there and haven't really broken off since then. Well, I've been doing martial arts really since then. So even when I was in the correctional facility, I try and practice my forms and train and stuff, and I'd get in trouble for doing that. Like, you're here for fighting, you can't practice fighting. I'm like, but this is so yeah.
Well, that's definitely it's definitely a catch-22. So tell me how martial arts. The word isn't how it. Why did it not turn the corner for you as much as you think it needed to?
I think the rec center program didn't really have the foundation built of it that like even T.O. Westlake had. As you know, Grand Master Ichikawa can be very stern, very strict, and so I think that helped a lot. But there's also a level of passivity to it. It kind of, in a lot of ways, it stopped when things left the mat. And
I see. Mm-hmm.
And so with my parents, my mom was always really overbearing, and my dad was, he could step it up, but for the most part, he was pretty passive. And I really attribute some of my biggest corrections was when I started training with you. and I started having you in my life because you were someone who could put the fear of God into me the way that no one else could. And but more importantly, you weren't afraid to call me on my shit outside of my behavior on the mat. And that was something that, you know, my mom became white noise because it was just always getting to the point where just, okay, I'm in trouble again. Okay, what else? What else? No, this is all I know is being in trouble. My dad he could step up if he needed to, but he was more compassionate, but not quite as upfront about it, I guess.
Right.
And then like Grand Master Ichikawa, I respect the hell out of him and for everything he taught me in training on the mat. And a lot of the lessons that you helped click were laid in the foundation by him, and be able to take off the mat. And so yeah, it was the biggest disconnect was martial arts to the rest of my life. Like on the mat, I was disciplined. I worked my ass off. I wanted things to be the best. I wanted to have integrity. But then off the mat, it didn't follow because there wasn't as much connecting it. And so I think with you, one of the biggest things that happened was just taking a personal interest in me beyond just what's happening on the mat. But then also you had such a strong tie into our faith. And so martial arts had always been a massive part of my life. My faith had been an important part of my life that I was always struggling with. And then I had my discipline and trying to learn how to be a man and grow up. And the three of those were always kind of separate. And so when you came around, it all started coalescing and coming together through serious talkings that we've had, through the Bible beatdown with Justice, and I mean, also being in, as much as you and I would get into it at times, I was always welcomed in your school, and you know, even when I was homeless, like you giving me a key to your school, to your business, to use the showers and to use things like that, like little things like that, all kind of like, okay, this wasn't just a business thing, or like, okay, this is just a client, right? It was someone that had taken a personal interest in me beyond what the scope of their job really had to be. And so,
yeah, I appreciate.
Yeah,
I think I hear what you're saying. I'm a little more of a stern pop, I guess is what you're trying to say. And, and, plus probably, I was a little bit younger back then too, but backing it up was not a problem. So, and I've always kind of gravitated towards, troubled kids anyway. You know what I mean? Especially strong-willed, males and stuff like that, because I always felt that because for lack of a better thing, I was kind of one of those, you know what I mean? I was, I just kind of walked the fence of I could have went either way, you know what I mean? When I went with the police department for a while, you could go either way. That could have been me. And it was interesting. I'm listening to you talk, and so I'm trying to reflect back as an instructor, even listen to what you have to say, taking that personal interest. And I don't do that right away. I'm sure as an instructor, you don't do that right away either. I look at people when they first come in as kind of these are our customers, and then the longer they stay, then they become students, and then from there, I kind of look and see, okay, you're a student now. In my book, you've passed this honeymoon stage, and now you are into the student stage. And how much, are you going to, do you want to, do this thing, martial arts, right? And so it's interesting to listen to you as I'm trying to reflect back, because I know that you had a hard time with stuff because people couldn't handle you too well. And then usually inside a martial arts school, right, you're going to have, you're going to have the one guy that kind of puts you in your place, right? You always have the enforcer, and
Right.
Unfortunately, there wasn't somebody that could do that to you.
No,
To
in most cases, I was
Yeah,
the enforcer.
you're right. You were the enforcer, right? And it's funny that that's what you played at Mr. Ichikawa's school, because that's kind of what I was back when I was training back in the day. Now I can tell you this: back in those days, there was a couple guys that give a run for money back in those days. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I would
love to
I had
get my ass handed to me.
Yeah, I got I got rocked a few times back in the day, but so that's interesting, and I appreciate all the acclimates, but it's still watching you kind of develop into your own thing. You know what I mean? So I've seen that you struggle sometimes with. I think we all struggle with when to keep our if there's anything I've learned being an older martial artist now, an older dude, is silence is golden, and I can't seem to get that sometimes into young men, because nobody could get it into me when I was a young man, right? Yeah. Now I'm an older guy, and I'm like, there's just sometimes shut your friggin' mouth. You know what I mean? That's just, as much as I don't want to sometimes, the where the fight's going to go from there it's hard to see. So, you started, I think, once you were there. Now, how old were you when you got your black belt?
I was 18.
So you left. You had to go away for 3 years, and not be part of Mr. Ichikawa. And you were at what rank at that time?
I don't remember which rank it was when I left. I was one of the intermediate ranks. I know I was doing all the Pyongan Chodan, Odan, all those. While away, so I was at least probably green,
possibly in the green area, right? And so, was there a talk with Mr. Ichikawa before you had to leave? Did your folks talk to him and say this is what's going to be happening?
No, I think it kind of took everybody by surprise. Like when we went into UCLA for the appointment, it was supposed to just be like a checkup, like a therapeutic appointment. They didn't expect me to be a little dick and like run around and thrash and be completely obstinate, where they decided that, we should probably check him in overnight. That wasn't the plan. And so a lot of that was made on the spot, to the best that I've been able to understand it. And then while I was there, they made the decision to drive me out to Utah, which a lot of people just they had a program where they send these big old Samoan guys from like football players from BYU to knock on these kids' doors and grab them and throw them in a van and take them out to Utah. Like, it was like they didn't mess around. And I was definitely on the receiving end of a lot of their stuff. Probably saw some of my most violence as a kid in this place. But my parents did drive me, and so they were involved the whole time. But yeah, when I came back, I got right back into it. My sister got her black belt before me, which kind of pissed me off. But I'm still here. I am still training and teaching.
Right.
But so then got that, and then just kept on going.
Well, do you feel that? So, were you 18 when you came out of that, or
I was 17?
So your parents had to decide to let you come out. Is that correct at that point?
No, actually, I graduated high school in 3 years, and we had something that had been worked out with. I do not know the details, but something about the funding for me going ended when I finished high school. So by me having all my credits, they're like, oh, well, now you can't afford this anymore. And so I never really graduated the place. I graduated once, and I nicked a couple things on the way out as a kind of a FU to the place. Found out about that, and so I was home, and then they sent me right back. So lesson was not learned.
Right.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this, I was talking about this with one of my students. I have a student of mine, Cameron, who has become a really great friend out here, and so he and I will just share these, get in deep dives into topics. And I was kind of sharing how, when the way I grew up, like I said, I didn't know anything other than being in trouble. That's when I look at it. It's like, and I remember coming to my parents at one point when I was grounded for like 3 months, and tell them like, hey, like all I know is me being in trouble. Like I feel like there's no hope for me to redeem myself, because I'm a kid. I can't look past a week, let alone 3 months is an eternity. Can we just start over so I can have like, think that there's some kind of hope to behave or whatever? And that didn't happen. But it got to the point where I was always in so much trouble that I had to ingrain me to no longer follow rules and to figure out how to circumvent everything and do things my way, because it didn't really matter what, in my head, it didn't really matter what I did. So I might as well figure out to make what I wanted to happen, and consequences be damned. And that was a lesson that took an extremely long time for me to learn. I didn't learn that in Provo. I didn't learn that when I came home back as an adult and started. And part of the reason why I've always had a hard time with following rules. I think that's kind of where a lot of authority issues came from. And once I started understanding that, being like, okay, and trying to draw it back and like, what are the rules? Why are the rules here? And then the biggest things for me, my personal life, was when I started teaching. And I started realizing that some of the things I was doing was hypocritical. And I didn't like that. Like I'm a lot of things, but I do my damnedest to not be hypocritical. And that always really, really, really bugged me. And so the more and more I got into these lessons and deep diving, like, okay, I'm teaching these young kids and these adults and the friends and trying to be this mentor like person. Like, you know, when I was raising Connor, my ex's kid, those kind of things is really it took that kind of a reality check to really make the big changes. And I think martial arts and everything else and all the instructors that I had was, and the teachings of going to church and understanding the Bible with my parents and my grandparents, all those things were kind of floating around there. But I had all the pieces to the puzzle, but I didn't know how they would go together. And then so now I've been taking all these pieces and putting them back together, and there's still plenty that are missing, but they started clicking more.
Well, I see that, you know, that's one thing, you know, even, you know, between you and I button heads, I think that, you know, there's always been a component to you, Greg, that's, you know, there's something down there that there's a morality and a conscience sometimes that, you know, and so we battle it, right? We battle in our own minds. I should do that. And sometimes we win and sometimes we lose, right? Sometimes we win the battle of our minds and sometimes we lose the battle of our minds. And so it's interesting for me to see that, because I've heard some of your story here before. And when you say that you saw most of the violence in that home, did you have to fight for yourself in there all the time too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I was smaller than everybody there. I was all the same problems I had before were really exacerbated, just highlighted even more, because at least when I was in a public school, at least half the kids were decent people, you know, didn't have these kind of problems. Now you put me in a place where all these people have this, you know, they're all troublemakers to some extent. Right. A lot of them have a very predatory, abusive kind of mindset. And so you go in there smaller than everybody. Like, oh man, I was, so much of my fighting experience came from in there. Yeah. And plus, you know, when I get pissed off and want to get into a fight with the staff, they're BYU football players. And they hit hard. So, and there's problems with abuse and stuff in there. And I know a year or so ago. I think about a year ago, Britney Spears came out talking about her experience in Provo. No, not Britney Spears. The other one, the other blonde, Paris Hilton. So she went to the girls' campus and she was kind of talking about some of the abuse and some of the stuff there. Now, I never had to deal with like the sexual abuse or anything that a lot of the female campus had, but there was definitely, you have a bunch of underage kids who don't know better or are easy victims and are all troublemakers. So they all piss people off, right? So everyone's pissing somebody off in some way or another. And there's a lot of, and while there's all the therapy and there's all the staff, there's all the therapists and psychologists and everything are all there. It's a bunch of people are just college students having a college job to babysit these kids. And then when they get pissed off and have this stuff, they don't really have the full training of how to do it. So I don't think it was so much that it was malicious abuse, but it was untrained of how to resolve these issues. And so when they get pissed off, they take your head and they bounce it off the wall a couple of times until you cool down.
Well, I guess that's an easy target, right? When you don't have authority watching what's happening all the time. I think that's good. I think if it was me, after listening to you a little bit, Greg, I'd kind of write those thoughts down a little bit, and because as you really think about where your growth came from out of there, and then what was it like to acclimate back to, I guess, what the real world is. You know what I mean?
That was interesting. Like, big thing that difference was I went in there as this like 4'5", whatever kid, right? And then dog just will not sit still. And then I came out as a 6 feet tall. I hit this massive growth spurt towards the end, and I remember sitting in the cafeteria in Provo, and I also part of the problem is I grew to love fighting. Like, I love throwing down. Like, even when I was smaller, it was, you've teed off on me a few times.
Yes.
and I'm still here, freaking hurt.
Right.
But like I could take it, right? And so I developed that from getting beat up so much. But I was in the cafeteria and this new guy sat down and he's trying to punk me for my food, which happened all the time. New people would show up and they try to somehow assert their dominance, kind of thing. And I'm getting ready, like, okay, we're gonna get into a fight. This is gonna happen. I'm gonna do this. And the guy next to me tells like, hey, no, don't mess with this one. And I'm looking, I'm like, wait, what? And like, so the guys around me dissuade this guy who was aggressing on me from fighting me. And I thought it was really, really interesting. Like, what the hell just happened? And that fight ended up not happening. I'm like, okay, in my head, I was all prepared for the 10, 15 seconds we have before we get sworn by the staff and body slammed. And then just dissuaded. And so I found that a lot of my violent issues, my fighting issues went away just because of my size backed up to a lot of my skill. And then of course, when I kept on training, the more training I had, like, I deal with this in martial arts, like, oh, you're training how to fight. I'm like, well, I'm training how to fight, but I'm also training how to do these things so that I don't have to fight. And so those things all kind of came in. And so when it came into coming back into the real world, I'd already developed a lot of these habits. A lot of these habits came out where my size was enough to cover for a lot of my insecurities. And then as I added more skill to it, it made it even easier. Didn't help that I did go back to Agora High School for my senior year for absolutely no reason other than this is what everyone else was doing. Like, my parents had that mindset of, we want you to socialize. And so that good and bad. Good because I got to socialize. Bad because I realized I had already graduated high school. And so I cared nothing about my grades and I just dicked around the whole time. But I was told that if I had gotten into a single fight, because of my history, I'd be expelled. And so I put a little more focus on how to defend myself without hitting people. And that happened multiple times where someone would get in my friend's face, because I've always been super protective of other people. And I'd end up restraining them. I one time, this guy threw a punch at my friend. I wrapped him up and walked him into the principal's office, and I'm holding him. He's like yelling, and I had him some kind of figure 4 lock. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Just happened to end up there, right? And like, this guy took a swing at me. What do I do? Let him go. Like, okay. And so I didn't get in trouble, because I was like, everyone came out and said, like, he could have fought, but he didn't fight. He just controlled the guy and put him out. And so that was a important lesson. But so as far as the fighting side, that kind of took care of itself, and the martial arts scratched that itch. I did the MMA fighting.
Right. I think, we'll talk about that. So fighting inside the karate studio is one thing. Fighting inside the ring is a whole different ball game. And then it looks like I was at one of your fights one time when you were at Ken Rose's, I believe. And I think, how many times did you fight in the ring?
4.
4 times. Did you ever do the octagon with us or not? Who did you?
Oh, no. Oh, well, yeah, I did those ones. Yeah, I was just thinking Ken Rose's.
One of the little smokers we did at Mr. Ichikawa's or something.
Yeah, I fought. I think his name was Kenny. He was a kickboxer. Wasn't Kenny Broderick. I don't remember that. God, that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I know. Well, it seems like yesterday, but yeah, I've been. Yeah, I remember. So I saw that. And I don't know. Did you go train for that? Or did you go train with Ken Rose for this, or did you just like, I'm just going to pop in the ring and do what I do?
Pretty much that, and that was very humbling. We won the first one. Then lost second. The lessons I learned from the other fights were valuable. One time I fought with the flu. That was just stupid, because we sold all these tickets. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to disappoint people, and I just went in there and just got my ass handed to me for 3 rounds. And that was just like, I've done smarter things. But it's weird, because like a lot of these lessons I've learned such valuable lessons through the martial arts. Right, like that was a good one. Taking care of your body, taking care of your health, learning patience. Well, we did this a lot in the Bible beatdown matches, right? Give them a good old Chatsworth baptism, but like you'd send me out to, because someone was hurting people, someone was going too hard, so you say, okay, Greg, go fight this guy, and like put him in check, and I'd learn to give them a warning shot. Like they'd come in and I'd check, and I'd be like, are you sure you want to go to this level? And then if they just said, yeah, let's go, then I'd drop them, like with a back kick or something.
Right. Yeah. I remember those.
Yeah. And, but having that warning, but then also making sure to be able to take care of someone that you did care about, even though you had to check them, right? There was no malice behind it. It was kind of like, okay, if you want to go this hard, this is what you're going to find. I had the same thing when you and I first fought. I completely underestimated you. Like it's like, I'm like, oh, who's this guy? This is however much way to go. And I had a terrible mind frame of way of looking at it. And I just like, everyone's so afraid of this Mark Cox guy. Who the hell is he? And stuff. And then so I'm like, I'm going to fight him and we're going to go toe to toe. And like, freaking ow. I don't know if you fixed that door yet from when you put me through it, but
we do call that the Greg Mills door.
So that was that. Then another time we were at a sparring night in Ichikawa school, and we touch gloves, we fought, and then we go to find someone else, and I see that everyone's pairing up, and then there's this girl, and I'm like, damn it, I don't want to fight a girl. That's such a waste of my time. Then finally we're going to do it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to, I'll just use it as a warm-up round. And so we touch gloves, and she kicks my ass, just straight up hands it to me, and find out that was Nathan Carlin's fiance. So
she's that's Vanessa. Yeah, she likes to throw elbows. She was a little tyrant.
But these are all lessons that taught me to not make assumptions and to not take things for granted, and to check my perspectives on things, and and those are lessons that I keep revisiting. That like even though Finding
So
Vanessa was probably 15 years ago, but
right, I listen over and over to what you're saying, right, and it's even in my own journey, my lessons always come from most of my lessons come from my losses. They really don't come from my win because I
yeah,
mean, or how as far as martial arts goes, I can get a better sense for you now after this small conversation about where you came from as a teenager and what that looked like. And I noticed that you don't have anybody that you talk about that was a mentor there for you. It was more like a survival for 3 years more than it was.
yeah. I mean, we had
Um,
therapists and stuff, but God, their therapists like they're like, oh well, the only way to explain this behavior is your dad must have abused you, and I'm like,
no,
no, like you like go back to your psychology for dummies book and try again. Like it was like, uh,
yeah,
and I think our understanding of things as we go through. Cause I try and do a lot of studying of teaching and of philosophy and psychology and stuff to try and connect better with my students. Talk about mindset, training, all these different things. And I think that we've just come so much further away from so many stigmas where everything fit in one box. And so now there's so many shades of gray and really trying to understand people better rather than just immediately going, you're in this category, you are in this category, you are in this category. Most people
right.
have a bleed over of all these different ones. And I think that's a big thing that was missing for those kind of mentors that I was supposed to have back then. Like I did have a mentor, Patrick Bagley. He was the vice principal of the school, of like the academic part of the school. He understood that I needed an outlet, so he would give me access to the library, and I would write all the time, write books and just things, notes, and just all the time. And I had access to it almost whenever I wanted. That was probably one of the single most valuable ways of me getting my stuff, my emotions and feelings out while in that place. Because everywhere else, if I did it, I got in trouble for something. And so he did see that. And then there's another guy, Ephraim Hanks. He and I would just jam and listen to music. Well, he would jam and he just let me hang out with him, and we'd get into talks that had nothing to do about all the other stuff, but it was like actually having someone who was really invested. But
Yeah,
no one that was willing to put me through. Well, that's not true. Plenty of people were willing to put me through a wall, but no one was able to put me through a wall with some love like you did.
yeah. Well, and I learned something from you, Greg. So I usually, when you're going to punish kind of an alpha male, right? You almost need another alpha male to kind of, I'm sure I'm going to get emails about that because I'm saying alpha male, but whatever. It's just, I learned something from you. Even though I beat you down, it's almost like it was a badge of honor for you. So it wasn't teaching a lesson.
No.
It was, hey, I survived Mr. Cox. You know what I mean? And that's, even so, I remember the guys that just used to kick the fire out of me, right? Like Tom Block and stuff like that. I mean, these guys put a beating on me. And I was kind of the same way, I took it as a badge of honor. I didn't take it as a humbling experience. And I found that the lesson I learned from you back then, just so you know, was like, I'm not getting through to him just by beating his ass. You know what I mean? Because, I don't know, there's a weird part to some of us, all of us, right? I think Jay had that a little bit. Jason Flame had that. I have that. And guys that are in our little inner circle, we kind of like the hitting. We kind of like getting punched in the face. It's weird.
Yeah.
We kind of like knowing what it's like to get choked out. And so,
I like knowing that I can take what you're going to throw at me.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a test, right? It's a test. Yeah. It's this, I don't know. It's this tribe mentality. And, but when I sat you down and I said, you know what? As your teacher, I couldn't be more disappointed in your actions as I am today.
Yeah.
And then I left it at that. I think that was a lesson I learned with, having you around quite a bit back then. is if I'm going to get through to this kid, it's going to be not through beating him down. It's going to be through, he's going to have to reassess that he's disappointing me more than.
Well, and I think it's a combination of the two, because for me to be able to care, to wear a badge of honor of getting my ass handed to me by you, you had to earn that from me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I had to respect you enough for that to mean something. Right? Like if I almost put out a name that I really don't want to put out, but if someone that we know whooped on me, and tagged me a bunch of times, I wouldn't really care because I don't respect the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for when you to be that, I'm like, okay, I can take what you can have, and then you go, oh, now I'm also disappointed in you. That's a huge thing. It's I think a really good example of that was when we went to the Maya show in Vegas.
Uh-huh.
And I ended up hooking up with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I found out after the fact that she was married.
Uh-huh.
Right. And that pissed me off because that's not something that I do. And you were pissed off at me.
Yeah, I was.
And rightfully so. And it meant a lot to me. And one of the things that I took from that was that and I remember you said this to me, that if I just went there to do what I was supposed to do and wasn't worried about trying to get some, it wouldn't have happened anyway, whether I meant to sleep with someone who was married or not, which I had no idea. I found out the next day that other people that it was, right. And that kind of really stuck with me. And I went down to Tennessee for some training, and and there's this girl that she was cute, and everyone was hitting on her, and she kept on coming up to me being like, why aren't you hitting on me? And I'm like, because I'm here to work. Like I'm here to learn stuff. Like and she's like, well, don't you think I'm cute? I'm like, yeah, but I'm here to work. Right. And so she ended up going out and getting some drinks and hanging out. But it got to the point where she was getting upset that I wasn't trying to actually hit on her, that I was just hanging out with her. I'm just like, you don't understand. Like, I'm here to work. Like, if you and I want to talk, right, long distance and maybe something else, cool, right? But I'm here to work. And so she and I did end up like long distance talking and stuff, and nothing ever came of it. But it was something where I felt pride that I had developed a conviction in myself that if I avoid certain circumstances and have a standard that I don't avoid or that I don't fall to,
right,
fall past, that it avoids so many other problems, right? That could have happened. You could have been the same situation. I don't know what she ended up. She was a fantastic girl, but to me, just long distance thing wasn't going to work for me, and so. But I was proud that, like, as much as I could have had like a sure thing for a fun night or something, right? That I had in principles and convictions that were more important, and that was instilled. The impetus of that was our conversation of that situation back in Vegas. That, like, you know what, I don't want to be that person, right? And so I'm going to make sure that this never happens again. And so I need to have more self-control. I need to have more principles, more discipline, to make sure I don't even accidentally fall into that situation.
Yeah, which is good, which I think sometimes equates to just having ownership of what you do. The Jocko book, Extreme Ownership, is probably one of the most transformation books that I've ever read myself. Plus, I like listening to it more than I like reading it when you listen to it talk. But when you live a life of extreme ownership, or you take ownership of what you do, lessons can be learned easier. People will relate to it because they can say that, you know what, I've been down that same road. This has happened to me. And then if you want to make a change, as far as a leader goes, if you want to make a change, you can. And in today's society, in today's woke society, it's almost a taboo to make mistakes anymore, right? We're so accustomed to, gosh, I can't, if I say the wrong thing or something like that, I'm just going to be, doesn't matter if I've learned a lesson from it. It just matters that I've actually said it, because everybody else is so judgmental as if they've never done anything. And the problem is, it's not that you've never done anything. You haven't got caught for what you have said or done yet.
Right.
That's really what it boils down to, so those are some good lessons. So let's, we're 50 minutes into this, but so let's talk about how you got to Virginia. So the Maya show that we were walking around together, and Robbie wasn't there, and because I would have liked to seen you and Robbie go at this, right?
Oh, that was so much fun,
right? Because I was watching the course, and I think I came up to you, right? And I said, Greg, I think you should do this course. And this Krav Maga booth had this, I don't know what it was. This, you go through here, you fight something here, and you gotta shoot at a paper target, and you got to do what you're going to do. And I guess it was a time thing. If you got the fastest time or something to that effect, right?
Yeah, so we had like obstacle courses for you to kind of go through. You had to do some drawing and putting shots on target. You had to do some defenses, do some strikes, some bag drags, and you also had to put a tourniquet on somebody.
Right. Yes. So I remember you going through this, and I think you set a course record, right, when you did it, and we kept watching it for a couple of days to see if anybody would break it, or did you have to go through it again to get a better time?
So I qualified the first day because I set a record, and then so then we would have to come back on the third day or whatever for the championship and go through again. And so during that time, though, the biggest thing that I identified that I had the hardest time with was the tourniquet. And I noticed that everybody else was getting stuck up on the tourniquet. So you got to put it on in a certain amount. The faster you put it on, you had to do it good enough. And you had a guy watching you right there, making sure that you did it right. And so I ran through the course over and over and over, and I just drilled that tourniquet like nobody's business. Like people would come out and they'd be practicing the shooting and all that, right? The shooting held up some people, but it was really I identified what the main problem was. It was the tourniquet. So made sure to rock that. And this other kid, what was his name? I can't remember. His dad was there kind of coaching him good. He and I were just like, we would skip seminars and go and just practice this thing, right? Because in between the seminars, when they had other people competing, but inside that, we just went and went and went and went. And so this guy, he and I were just constantly pushing each other, and that was fun. Like I'm like, man, I don't like being the only one out there doing it. I want someone to compete against. I'll do it by myself, but yeah.
Right. So I remember that. So that's kind of what I remember when you won. We were there. I think you won yourself a cert gun and all kinds of stuff.
Cert
and
gun,
I think
shock knife, and a trip to Pennsylvania Krav camp with Ernie Kirk's group.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Ernie,
and I also won the Lieutenant Scott Wilcox Award, which was awarded by his wife. He had just died a year prior, but she said that she was looking for someone out there that represented her late husband's character and mindset. And so when she saw me practicing, right, she's like, it's that guy. Like no one else is putting in the same work that this guy's doing. That guy is doing what that was. So that one meant more to me. But
yeah, why don't I recall that? Either I don't recall it or it didn't go on my radar as important. Yeah. That's quite an honor coming from somebody who is honoring their loved one. So that's a good call. But I guess that's where it all started, right? Because you went to this camp, and that's where they saw you.
Yeah, that's where I met Tim Rook.
Right. And then that's how it all came about. All from that Maya show, all from that practice, winning
all for that tourniquet.
Right. And then going out there because you were struggling with what to do out here. You learn quick. Even having your own program is quite as easy as you get, especially when you're when you want a champagne school on a beer budget. It doesn't it's hard to grow. It's not impossible, but it's hard. You know what I mean? And then you're working very hard for other people and putting in that time. so that just gets to be hard. You know what I mean? And so I know that was a struggle, and this opportunity came along, and unfortunately, it was right before your black belt test with me. So you took on this new venture, and so with that, now that you've I wouldn't per se that you're the school owner, so you're not responsible for the bills and the payroll and all the stuff that comes with having a business, but you are in charge of this school and its growth and what it's supposed to do. So what are the lessons that you've learned now? Now you've taken all this. What's one of the lessons that you've learned where you look back and go, this is exactly what Mark Cox or Jason Flame or, are talking about right here. This is exactly what they mean.
It's a few loaded questions in there. But my main thing has always been focusing on the students.
Mm-hmm.
And my philosophy from when I first started teaching to and I still have it today, is that if you take care of your students well, the business will more or less take care of itself. I've learned that is very much a very broad statement with a whole bunch that comes underneath that, and I've learned more and more what comes underneath that. I still try to have my principles of when I run things, when I do things for the students, I put their make sure they're getting the value and they're getting what's benefiting them first, and being honest, and being making sure I don't like to hide prices or hide like hidden costs or anything. I try to be upfront with everything, and there might be a couple of people that maybe I don't sync because I didn't sell or manipulate them into buying up a membership. But the people who do see this, they see that there's integrity behind it, and so they stick around, and that's something I'm proud of. But I've really learned the value of one-on-one lessons for introductory lessons. Has been a big thing, because forever the practice was you throw them into a normal class, and hey, do you like it? Okay, yeah, here, sign up. And being able to sit down and really talk to the students and the parents in that one-on-one setting really finds out, like, okay, it helps make that first step of that actual connection to the student. And it's something that I didn't really value very much until I came out here. I know Jason had talked about this at one point. I think he does it now, but I know back when we were doing it, we didn't really do it back then. I know with Brandon, we didn't really do it all that much. But coming out here and learning that, I feel like that when putting in the right framework, because the point is to connect with the students, not to try and give them a sales pitch, but to try and understand, like, okay, what are you looking to get out of this? And then highlighting them, okay, I see what you want, and this is how our program will get this. Oh, I see what you want, but our program doesn't offer this, but you look at it in this light, this can access this, and you understand where they're coming from, and that way, and you explain to them that. I think it's important for the parents to be involved in all that. So that's big. Understanding staffing. How much? I don't want to get too political on that. So okay, yeah. So we had this parent side out coming up, and so that's the big thing. We have events nonstop. Like almost of the three schools that Tim, the owner, has, my school has events going on almost every single weekend. This last weekend I had a knife defense seminar and then an adult cram session. This weekend we have a parents' night out and we have a women's self-defense, and really putting that value of if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it. And I tried taking a vacation with my girlfriend, and I had to set up for my staff to do, you guys can do parents' night out this night. And 2 days before, both those staff canceled. And so I was stuck in this point where I'm like, okay, how do I do this? And I got one of my staff to step up and do it. And fortunately, one of the other staff from one of the other schools came in and covered it. But I was prepared to step in and like, I'm going to have to cancel my thing so I can do this, because this is something that we've already sold tickets for. I'm trying to make it that if I say I'm going to do something, meaning we're going to offer a program, or we're going to offer a seminar or a service or something, that we're going to do it, even if it's only for one person. And so I didn't want to cancel it. So that was one of those things.
Well, yeah, that's welcome to leadership right there.
Right. Yeah. And then, there's days where we have it where, this was kind of from before anyway, but I have people who are supposed to run my kids program, and then they call me for some reason they can't come in, or they're sick or whatever that is. And so I got to step up. I got to rearrange my whole schedule to make sure that the school runs the way it's supposed to, even though I'm not technically usually on the mat until the adult classes. So I got to rearrange the appointments that I have set up and doing all those things. So just little things like that really has come through. Trying to understand inventory. I know that was a big lesson. I'm still learning that one. I'm terrible with inventory, but I'm not as terrible as I used to be. So making on that. But
well, it's right. There's the the easy part of martial arts ownership is the teaching classes. The hard part is making a business so the doors don't close.
Yes.
And trying to make the between the two, right? Because if you've heard, it's always said, right? If you're a martial artist, I can't believe you charge for that. You know what I mean? You get this stigma that what we do should be, we should be giving away a lot of what we do. And then here's the thing I know. Anywhere there's a martial arts school, there's a benefit to that community. All Absolutely. Right. Whether it's to the studio, whether it's to the community itself, just safety wise, right? Having the studio around, people feel safer. You know what I mean? Whether it's a drive for the local schools where we bring in supplies for them, right? And stuff like that. Whether it's at Thanksgiving time and we get turkeys out for families that need help or whatever. This is the beauty of the martial arts school. And this is the stigma. But unfortunately, if we're going to have that, if you want that in the community, there has to be a cost that is adhered to it. So I think, listening to what you're saying now, that you're getting a taste of what leadership really looks like, because you have to handle not just teaching class. You got to handle the the pressures of developing your team, and then making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then you have the pressures of, is there enough new students coming in? And, the selling part, and the beauty of selling part is passion. I know this, if you get in front of me, you're going to want to take class. That's just how I feel, because I've known what the martial arts has done for me and what it can do for your child if you're going to get on board and be on board. You know what I mean? And then this will be something beneficial for their life. So this is Sean saying, good afternoon, sirs. Thanks so much, Greg, for doing this live broadcast, sharing your background. I've enjoyed and benefited so much from your classes in a short time. I can't wait to get back to training. As a parent of an ADH 9-year-old who seems to be headed down a similar path, it has become near impossible to correct him with traditional discipline and redirection, to the point where he finds himself in a constant ground struggle where being in trouble is the normal.
Yeah. That right there, that's one of the things that, like, as much as I love teaching the adult classes more, like, there's just, that's my soft spot. It's for all the kids who've gone through those kind of things. Like, always the kids that some of the younger staff are like, oh man, I don't want to deal with that kid today. I'm like, no, that's the kid that's why we're doing this, is for for that kid.
Right. And I think that's true. I think that you're going to find in martial arts, I think anybody that is listening right now, I can tell you this, in a martial arts school, I've yet to see any of them in my time of doing this for 30 something years. The mat does not see your creed. It does not see your religion. It does not see your color. It does not see anything outside of what it's going to expose your weaknesses. And it doesn't matter what you are. So that's the beauty of it. And then a lot of times you're going to get these kids, nobody is going to take the ADH kid. Most of the time, even my children were the same way. They put them in a special class, in a special school. You're in special ed, it's called. So you're special, and so you're getting made fun of for that shit and all that. You know what I mean? And my kids went through the same stuff, right? In this martial arts school, you might be a problem. At some point, there will be a corner turned if you can be consistent with the discipline of it. And unfortunately, some schools still don't do. I mean, we're still kind of an old school disciplined. We've got parents that have come in and say, "Listen, my kid is so out of control. Go ahead and boot camp him. Do what you're going to do. I'm going to leave."
Right.
And then we'll physically break them down so that we can mentally talk to them. You know what I mean? And it's whether it's working out physically hard and making them do things that they don't want to do, and then you get them to a place where you can go, was this worth it today or whatever? So, and just like, that's what you enjoy. That's probably what attracts me the most to it. Kids that are bullied, can't stand it, because that's how I was, you know what I mean? Kids were getting made fun of, special needs kids that are a little social awkward and no one sticks up for them in school and stuff like that. I cannot stand that at all. You know what I mean? You get them, Aries. And so I have a real passion for that. And I believe you have that same thing. I think it all comes from our background as we've grown up to be men of watching, what happened to us, not wanting that to happen to somebody else if we could be that mentor. So, with that being said, I wanted, this podcast went just the way I thought it would. I'd like to see the other side of, Greg, the other side of you that you have, because like myself, some people, everybody loves us and some people hate us. I don't really give it. I don't care. If you don't like it, I put out the meme the other day. I said, people talk behind my back because they have enough respect for me not to do it in front of my face.
Yeah.
And so, I think that if there's, listening to your last thing and what you're saying, and then you have this mom here, thanking you for what you're doing and having a problem child in.
Well, she's one of our adult students too, so that's so she gets.
Yeah, so it's great. It's good to see, because in a martial arts school, it doesn't matter how good we do, everybody's going to bring up the bad, and that's just the way life is. You can do good for 300 years, and then you do one thing bad, and you're going to hear for it for 300 years. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. It just, and so as a instructor, when we hear, we're so critical of ourselves that it's a blessing to hear, hey, because sometimes we go home and we're like, am I making a difference or am I not, man? Because this is just, this day sucked. Moms or dads on top of you, and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and they're not happy here, and you have to run a business at the same time. You want to have ownership in your martial arts, and you want to have a certain way for it to happen. It all just is a cluster, and then there's a breakthrough on one of these kids. So, it's
extra hours worth it.
Yeah. So it's, nobody can love dogs like you do and not have a good heart. You know what I mean? Most really good dog people have these awesome hearts. You know what I mean? It's because, dogs can tell when you are a POS. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They
my
so
girlfriend's brother asked her, like, is there a world where Greg doesn't have his dogs? And she's like, yeah, no.
yeah, I know it was important to you because I feel that, you know, they're when they say that they're therapy, they are definitely therapy, especially to strong men like that, you know, to have that that commonality together, that camaraderie, you know what I mean, that you can only get from an animal like that. So it's been good. So this has been good, Greg. I'm going to have this in audio for you, and you know, if I haven't been able to tell you before, you're doing a fantastic job. I'm proud of the man you're becoming. This new girl that you got, she looks awesome. Try not to screw that up.
I'm doing my best.
Right.
I told her that. I told her, like, yeah, every time I check in with Mark, he's like, well, you haven't screwed this one up yet. I tell her, like, he likes you, so that's good.
It's you know, it's good to see it's good to see that you know, the lessons learned. It was great to hear kind of your feedback. If you got any students that are going to listen to this today, I've been with Greg for a long time. I've got to teach him for a long time, and I think you guys are in a good place. If you want to learn how to defend yourself, he's going to teach you how to defend yourself. Okay, he's got stories for you that your life has lived, and that you can learn from it. And you know, I didn't graduate college. I did some college, it just wasn't for me. I went through the same school of hard knocks just like you did, and just in a different path. So I think this is Tim. I think this is the owner of the schools you work for right here, right?
Yeah.
Great. God pass, guys. You guys come a long way through the school of hard knocks. Thank you for your passion, dedication. It's great. Got a couple other people coming in here at the last thing. This is a good comment too here from Sherilyn. So it looks like you got people coming out here listening to you, bro. Right. Oh. Hey, you let me know. You let me know. Go ahead and introduce her. Go ahead and introduce her. Tell everybody who she is.
That's Charlie. No, she's amazing. If I could be half as compassionate as she is, then I'm off to a good start. There's definitely times where I'm hey, sweetheart. Definitely times where I'm very stubborn, and she is extremely patient with me.
Really? What a shock. Really just so you know, there's Linda. I would like to punch him in the face when he's like that, just so you know. So I know exactly what he's talking about. Exactly what he's talking about. So he's a good dude, though. I tell you, he's sometimes misunderstood, but I'm the same way. So, you know, it is what it is. I thought today was it went just as I wanted planned. Make sure you share this with your guys. Thanks everybody that's checked in. If you're looking for in your area, make sure that where you at exactly. What's the city you're in?
Gainesville.
Your school?
Gainesville, Virginia.
Gainesville.
Yeah.
Gainesville, Virginia. Okay. Yeah. So listen. It's been great. You know, we didn't get to talk about the borderline thing. I said we can do that on another time. Definitely. I think if I do something about more training and some other stuff, we'll get to the borderline. You know, you had a lot of stuff that we didn't talk about, but we'll get to that one when it can be concentrated for that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, man.
Just to my students or anyone else that's following, I just want to take the time. It's really just I've already talked about a little bit, but just how much Mark has meant to me. You know, even when I'm out here in Virginia, typically he's the first person that I call when I have a problem, or I'm like, okay, I'm hit with this thing, I don't know what to do. And so even from across the country, I look at you as really my number one mentor. So I appreciate everything that you do for all the students. That I would not be as successful or the person that I am without everything that you've done. And I think it's important to acknowledge those people in your life, and you're definitely one of them, sir. So thank you. I
appreciate it. I always appreciate you guys for all the acclimates you give me. But trust me, I learn more from you guys than you do from me. I can tell you that. Yeah. All right. Definitely. All right, man. Have a good night.
All right. Take care.